This award is a recognition of the work that we've fallen in love with over the course of a year. Every year we get together and do the Utne Independent Press Awards. It's an award to give people recognition for outstanding performance over a year's time in our library. We get 1,300 publications, and we live with these publications all year. Our mission as a magazine is to reprint the best of independent and alternative press. We really care about these magazines. We're not just making these decisions. We don't just say, we're gonna have an award ceremony and like sit around for a couple of weeks and award a bunch of magazines. This is a process that takes all year. We're thinking about this all the time.
So this is our 20th year doing the Utne Independent Press Awards, and they are the heart of what this magazine is about. And it's our way annually to honor all of the kind of incredible publications that make up our library. We know all the magazines in our library so well. 1,300, 1,400, 1,500, however many there are at a given time. They're like friends to us. When the new issue comes in, we rush over to see it. We remember what they've done before. Like, I could walk through the library right now and point to all these different magazines and say, oh, this one, and oh, this one, and you get really attached to them in this emotional way. And that, I think, is what the press awards are about showing to people.
Vote! Put your initials on this one. You know who to give a raise to. Oh, it's a really long process. It always takes us several months actually to get this thing winnowed down. All the editors are assigned a category, and they start by just throwing a ton of magazines into that category. Ultimately, the first step is to winnow that category down to about 12 or 14 titles, and then we argue them down to 8, and then we get to the winner. And it depends on the category. We've spent hours.
To me, they don't cross that non-Pollyanna bar. I mean, for me, a lot of what they publish...
Non-Pollyanna bar.
I understand. I understand. But to me, a lot of what they publish, and this is what they set out to do, but to me there's something fundamentally unsatisfying about a lot of articles extrapolating the importance of something from one study.
Isn't the fact that they raise this subject inherently interesting? I mean, it makes you think about it.
I love so many different magazines, but I don't look at all of them and think my life would be less intellectually stimulating if you weren't here.
This magazine, you're just not seeing this sort of coverage anywhere else, and they're stalwart about it, and it's valuable. And if they went away, I don't know where you'd find it. One thing I can tell you about each person on this staff is that they love magazines. And we love to read, and we love to debate, and we love to argue, sometimes ferociously. For instance, in Best New Publication this year, it was a really tough category to come up with the 8 nominees because there were a number of new publications. We were blown away by, really, frankly, more than 8 of them, but we limit ourselves to those 8 top nominees. But it's also a lot of fun because it's where our passion is as a staff.
Here's what's incredible about this magazine.
Get past the fact that there's this sort of like gleeful.
It's a magazine about me.
It's a magazine about me.
I'm way past that. I'm way past that.
Right.
I'll tell you that what is amazing about this magazine, and initially it's meat. My God.
I know, but I'm also not swayed by gee, it's amazing that they come up with all these magazines worth of meat stories every time they do a magazine. That doesn't sway me.
I have not spoken.
All right.
You read this magazine cover to cover, which and bless them, that's easy to do. You do end up looking at all sorts of cultures and cultural issues through the lens of meat. But it is actually possible, amazingly, given the fact that every page has meat on it, to forget that you're reading a meat journal and think, I'm just reading a great culture journal. And that happens to me every time I read this.
And the first thing that happens in the process is we do what we call the big dump, where everybody looks at the categories we have and thinks about every magazine that could possibly be up for a nomination in that category. And we start making this massive spreadsheet of every category and every magazine that could possibly be worthy of a nod. You look at your category and you look at all the magazines that everybody thinks you should be reviewing, and you head into the library for several weeks and you pull all those magazines down and start reviewing their years, winnowing to about 12 suggested nominees. And we make a verbal pitch to everybody else on staff about who our nominees are and why those magazines should be nominated in the category. Other editors, make objections, why are you giving the cold shoulder to such and such magazine?
I have found that magazine to be snotty in the past, and I have loved them this year. Like, I have just devoured their issues from front to back. And
what do you mean by snotty?
It felt like just such a small group of people writing to one another. But something about them has really opened up, and I fell in love with this magazine all over again this year.
When you look at the art that's put together for each piece and commissioning of these pieces, finding of these pieces, seems like a lot of work.
We don't have a set of rules that we check off. It's a very subjective thing. And so, a lot of it's gut and heart, and sometimes it's who can marshal the best argument in the room, and that's what makes it fun.
We get about 1,300 publications, everything from zines, alt weeklies, newsletters, you name it, magazines. And they all kind of go in here. We're going to pull out some nominees this year. We've got Meat Paper. This is their pig issue. IEEE Spectrum, which is a nominee in the science tech category. Kind of a mouthful, but a great magazine. Film Comment, a nominee in arts, won last year in arts. The Fader, also a nominee in arts, really beautiful magazine. I am not a parent, but I have this thing for radical parenting magazines. I can't explain it at all. So I love Hip Mama to that end. This is not a guilty pleasure of mine, but this is a magazine of nude travel and recreation. These are the archives. As you can see, some magazines we have all the way back to the beginning. We have Adbusters, for example, all the way back to the first issue. We have all the way back to the first issue of Colors, which was born the very dramatic cover.
It's easy to dive into the library and want to know all of these magazines because we're driven in that way. I also think that there's a large portion of the staff that is pretty detail-oriented and retains a lot of information in maybe kind of a creepy way.
It's our mission. Our mission is to celebrate alternative media and independent media. And so this is our chance to really, we all love to get into this work and talk about what's important and celebrate it. Hopefully this shows the editors and the writers and the publishers at these periodicals that, hey, you're doing good work. Stick to it, be proud of it.